Hey everybody, Big Toad here, and welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to work on a painting that's very similar to the very last video I did. I did some aspen trees along a road, and in that painting, in that video, I actually told you and mentioned that I was not happy with the composition. I told you what was wrong with it, and I promised to do another video and fix that composition. So I didn't go back in and paint over the last painting. I'm going to actually just start from scratch and do another one. And so I've changed the composition. So I've already done my sketch in using my typical burnt sienna, and I thin that out with mineral spirits. And what I've done is I've put a small stand of aspens on the left mid ground. Excuse me, that's distant. So it's below the hill line. So you're going to only see the tops of those. And then I put another stand of aspens on the right that's closer, just on the other side of the road. So you'll see those going in. And then I still have the main big aspen tree and the dead tree next to it. So very similar road and foreground, and the only thing I changed was the backdrop of the distant aspens. I reduced that down. I then took the mid-ground aspens and I I shrunk those to only fill up the right side. And I'm also putting this hill, or this big hill back here behind the scene. And so you'll see me put that in, and I think that makes a much nicer composition. And we'll see that as we get done. So I went in with some blue on the sky, kind of using a grayish blue. I'm not after a real bright sky this time. And I'm going in with some greens for the distant hill. And they're very pale greens. I'm putting in a little contour and texture with a little couple different varieties of greens, light and very close. So I don't want a lot of different contrast in that because it's the furthest thing away. So on the mid-ground aspens on the left, I put in a yellow ochre mix with, I did bring in a little bit of browns to deaden out that color. And I'm going dark on the bottom. I want to create shadow down lower in the aspen trees. So I'll keep reestablishing a little darker color down there. And then I'm going to put some contour into those aspens using that same yellow ochre. And I'll start lightening it up and making different hues with cad yellow light and cad yellow medium to get depth into those and to get contour and to separate the trees so it doesn't look like one big solid. You can overwork this. It really, you shouldn't have to go into a lot of detail in this type of thing. So with that done, I come in with greens to block in across the road on the right side and throwing in various little colors, just kind of experimenting too with various greens and such as I block it in. And I block in the road with a nice deep brown, which is ultramarine blue. And I threw in some burnt sienna and made that nice deep brown that I'm using there. I might have thinned that out a little bit with titanium white. And now I'm doing a brighter green in the foreground. And so there's basically the block in. I haven't blocked in the trees yet, so I'll go ahead and start on that. Using a very small flat brush to block in that tree. And I'm not going to go try to go all the way up with that. I will come in with a rigger to put some detail in. Blocking in some stones in the foreground. Just threw a gray on there. I'll come back in and do a three-phase. I'm taking a ultramarine blue and I have thinned it down with some titanium white, deadened it a little bit with some of the opposing color. Complementary color, and now I'm adding some white. So I'm going to add some texture to this. I'm using here for this part a small round. I think it's like a number 4 round. And now I'm going to go in with a small flat and just block in some trees, those aspen trees on the right. And you'll notice I don't bring them all down to the same level. I don't want to line them up at the same. I'm making some of them look a little more distant than others, larger, and I'm bringing them down lower on the painting, which gives depth. So my block in is basically done at this point. So now I start adding in some color to those aspens, and I'm going with somewhat subdued yellow ochre there, bringing in a little darker color. So I add some of the brown I used on the road into the yellow ochre mix. Now I've taken that same yellow ochre mix and added in some cad light, cad yellow light, and I'm going to come back in with some more and add in some cad yellow medium to get another another value in there. So I worked those out. I'm still using the same number 4 round brush for that, and I worked those a little bit. You can quickly overwork these, so be careful. Now I'm adding with the rigger, I'm adding some contour, or I should say some shadow to the side of those trees, and I'm also taking that rigger and just putting some small tree trunks in the further aspen trees that are down the hill on the backside. And I'm going to use this rigger also with some of the white to bring some limbs up into the trees, like it's showing through the branches and the gaps and the leaves and such. So I'll put some of those in. Don't want to overdo those at all. Now I'm taking that same rigger and going in with a really nice dark ultramarine blue burnt sienna to put some black dots on those. Those aspens will have blackish spots on them. Now using the rigger with that same black or dark color and putting a few little limbs on the dead tree over there and shaping that out some, giving it some nice nice branches. Don't want to overdo those also. You can get to where it's too much. You can easily go too far on those types of things. Better to stop before you're done. Now I'm going in with a small flat brush to add some titanium white, and I'm mixing it maybe with a little bit of the grays and such that I had. Now using that rigger brush, I come in and start putting in the black little nodules on the aspen tree, as they often have. And then some of those I will bring out some small twigs. This is a very large tree, larger than the ones I would say are across the road, so we're not going to see any of the foliage on this tree. It's all going to be assumed to be above the frame of the painting. So don't want to put a twig out of every one of those little spots, but and now I'm kind of just messing up those spots a little bit. I don't want them to look too uniform. So now I need to start working on some of the greens in the foreground and just across the road. So I'm starting with some darker greens, putting that in around. I want to get some darker greens up underneath that small patch of aspens where the shadows would be. And I want to keep some dark greens on the left side of this painting. And I will do some work to lighten some of those up and begin to create contour and depth and movement and variety in my foreground. So my greens, I always typically start with yellow ochre and ultramarine blue, and then I'll use it very dark, and then I can do multiple things with it. I can take that very dark one, I can lighten it up, of course, with titanium white, and then I can also take that mixture or the original mixture and use various other colors to get different kinds of greens. I can use the cad yellow light, cad yellow mediums. I can bring in some burnt sienna to deaden it out, gray it down a little bit. I can bring in some really dark browns. So there's lots of options here. So what I want to do here is I'm going to create little shadows with I'm actually use some ultramarine blue on those shadows and mixed it as it went on right on the palette. I'm going to create some contour here with adding darks and lights. The light's coming in from the left, so I want to put the light on the left side of these little hillsides that I'm creating. It's not a level hill coming down. It's got some rivulets and contour to it, so I'm going to capture that and add some little more foliage in the background, on the ground, some bushes, and to break up that edge a little bit on the backside of that green patch before you run into the hill or the mountain behind it, and also the yellow aspen tree leaves I put back there. So I'm using darks to create the illusion of shadow and darkness on the backside of those bushes, because again, the sun's coming from the left and maybe a little forward. I'm going to put some dark in. Now I'm bringing some light in on that side to create contour. Again, these are all greens that I'm using. I'm using yellow ochre. My palettes almost always use the same palette, especially when these outdoor scenes. And that's a good thing. Just stick with the palette and use it till you get really good at it, and then bring in colors as you need them to expand your color mixing. I do have a little extra colors here and there I bring in, but I try to stick to my main palette. You just get very quick at mixing colors when you always use the same ones. Using the rigger, I'm putting some nice little tufts of grass in around the trees and coming down that little hillside there. And I'm paying attention to contrast. I'm paying attention to shadow to make sure I'm using the darks. I'm paying attention to values and make sure that I have lower chroma and higher chroma where I want it. I don't want the chroma to be too high on this, what I'm working on here, because it's a little further away, but it's not so further back that I can't have some chroma. You'll see the chroma is a little nicer here than it is if you move back, a little higher as it typically is. So adding some more color to this road, gonna work on this road a little bit. The road's kind of small, the angle it's coming in at, so it's a little harder to get the emphasis on this road like I want. Like the two ruts in the road from the tires. You hear me talk about that a lot when I do my roads. That's very typical to have ruts on each side where the tires go. So, but the angle of this road makes it a little harder to make that effect work. So I have to struggle with it a little bit, going back and forth with my lights and my darks, trying to massage that road in and make it look nice. I'm not trying to overwork it. I'm more, I would say, experimenting with various values and brush strokes to try to get a contoured road. So I've started, all these browns are based off of the ultramarine blue and the burnt sienna, and then I use other colors to lighten it up, and titanium whites, yellows, and such. Going in with a nice dark green. It's higher chroma than what I've used on the other side of the road. Now I'm coming in with that, again, the ultramarine blue, that really nice dark, putting the bottoms of the rocks in, putting some shadows, using that dark around the bottom of the tree. Feeling good with my darks. I start bringing in some cad yellow light and cad yellow medium, and I'm bringing in some higher chroma greens mixed with those cad yellow lights, cad yellow mediums, to bring some brilliance up front. Keep that chroma a little higher up in this foreground area. I'm bringing in some more dark color, and here bringing in some more of the lighter, brighter greenish yellows with those cad yellow light, cad yellow mediums. So I can bring the chroma up in this foreground. Coming in with a few more darks on each side. And now back to the greens and bringing a little more brightness into where the cad yellow mediums. Now I start using my rigger to flick up some grass. Lay that on its side and flick it up. Just have to make sure your paint's thin enough. And going to add some flicked up grass into the mid-ground there on the other side of the road. Putting some nice grasses around the main tree there to give it some nice depth. Make it fit into the landscape. Now I went with the kind of the olive green. Now I came in with the dark green. Dark green to add some grass there. And you'll see, like on that yellow, I didn't do it all the way around. I don't want to use it everywhere, but I put some dark grass right in front of that yellow in the foreground, to kind of break that up. Now I come in with a medium dark, and now I come in with a lighter color. I think I went with actually titanium white that I just, some muddy titanium white I had in my palette. And I just tapped in some color around it, bringing up grasses of various colors to bring depth to those rocks. Now getting a nice dark edge. I'm kind of using blue here to bring out a shadow across the road. I want to keep that shadow a little cool and use some blue for that. So I'm bringing that down with this, using that flat. You'll see this little flat I use often. It's very small flat, like a 1, I think. And I know a lot of guys would never use it, awful small brush, and but I like it, so I use it. Add in a little more shadow to the side of that aspen. Bringing in some more color. And oh, a nice soft green. It's got some good chroma, and it's breaking up that darker foreground. I'm going to decide to add in a little bit across the road. Don't want to do too much. I'm going to keep the chroma a little lighter on this side, but it's a nice color. So I'm able to then bring some life and depth and excitement to the other side of that road. Bring that in a little further and bring in some more dark down at the bottom there, so I can bring up some grasses along the bottom. I like the darker edges on the bottom. I like the darker corners on the bottoms. There's times when I don't use that, but I don't know. I think it gets a nice effect and really pulls the eye in towards the painting, and it doesn't let your eye drop off the bottom. So bringing in a little darker, going to work on this little bush along the right side a little bit. Want to add a little bit of contrast, but I don't want it to stand out too much. So I bring in some cad yellow light to break that up. Now I'm going to bring in a little lighter color into the road. I use some titanium white to lighten up that brown I used for the road, so I can create some contour. And I want to lighten it. I wanted to bring that light down behind that main tree because I want it to be lighter in the background. Now I'm using that kind of green to sign it. And that brings me to the end of this painting. It took me about 2 hours, maybe 2 hours, 15 minutes to finish this painting. And like I said at the beginning, this was I didn't like the last painting. Now I'm going to put these two paintings side by side and look at the compositions, and you decide which painting do you like better. Okay, so here are the two paintings. The painting on the left is my first one. The painting on the right is my second one. Now, the composition, which composition do you like better and why? I prefer the composition in the second painting on the right. The first painting on the left, it just felt too busy. It didn't allow my eye to focus anywhere. I didn't feel like I could travel through the painting. And that just, there's things I like about the first one. For instance, I like the main tree better. I'll be honest. I think the main tree looks nicer than the tree in the second one. But I like some of the colors. I mean, now that I look at it again, I might want to go in and bring in, create a little more contrast, a little brighter green in a couple places on the second painting, which I'll do, to make it look better. But all in all, I think the composition is far better on the second one. It allows you to move your eye around the painting. And let me explain what I mean. The one on the second one, the one on the right, I can follow the road up to the main aspen tree. I can follow the aspen tree up. I can follow then the contour of the yellow trees behind it as it slopes down and then runs into that dark line that shows the back of the hill on the right. I leads that into the stand of aspen trees. Then I've got the contour from the aspen trees in a couple places that bring the eye back down to the road. And on the road, you've got options. You can go back up to the main aspen tree, or you can follow the shadows up into the foreground where you catch the yellow grass that's there, followed up into the rocks, and you go up to the deadfall tree. And if you can either go over to the main aspen or follow that dead tree up into again the yellows of those aspens behind it. And then you still have the mountain that gives you some place for your eye to travel. Now we go back to the first one. Let's look at that. We have some of the same things in the composition. The main aspen tree is great. The road takes you right to the aspen tree. You've got those nice patches of yellowish grass that leads you up that little hill to the left towards the aspen. You got those rocks that lead you in again towards the aspen and towards that dead tree. You can go up the aspen or up the dead tree, but when you get to the top, you're lost. You don't have anywhere to go because now you're just lost in that jumble of green trees. And so your eye just kind of gets stuck. And it's not a pleasant stuck. You're not riveted by it. You're just like, oh, you're there. It doesn't pull your eye along like the composition in number 2. Now there's things I like I said, about the first one better. I like the foreground a little better in the first one, I'll be honest. The road is really nice in the first one. I prefer the aspen tree a little more in the first one. Other than that, though, the composition is worse to the point where the second one is just more appealing to the eye. And I did rush the second one a little more probably than I did the first one. And, I don't like doing the same painting twice. But I couldn't help it. I wanted to go back and fix the things that I felt I had done wrong. So I hope you agree with me that the second painting is a much better composition. And that's what we, as artists, we need to think about. As oil painters, we need to think about. And sometimes you don't realize the composition's bad till you paint it. And that's what happened to me. I didn't realize the mistake I'd made with the composition until it was done. It should have been obvious, but it wasn't. And the second one gives your eye a lot more places to go, a lot more enjoyment in the painting. So, hey, I hope you learned something, and I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for sticking out to the end. This is the Big Toad, and I am out.